All right, we are live, and I'm going to do a very earth-based practice today. I'm just setting this thing up so that it is spouting out to all the correct locations. Spouting out. Yeah, so I'm going to work with the earth element today and how the earth element interrelates with other elements. And also really inspired by being with your muckiest, murkiest, crappiest stuff and being okay with that. So whatever you got going on is welcome in this moment. And we aren't going in to change, fix, or, solve the problem. We're just going in to be with. And I'm going to do this sounding practice that I find really resonant for my nervous system to downregulate, to slow down. And when I do it, there tends to be a bit of overtone, and I kind of play with that as something to focus on. Um, I have put the original sound for musicians on, so it may or may not come up depending on how YouTube and Zoom and my earbuds deal with it. So let's just take a second to land into your body and really to land into the earthiness of your body, to land into the bone, into the bones, to land in your skeleton, to land in your fibrousness, in the fibrousness of structure that's creating the form that is you. So we could say it's your fascia, your bones, but and just feeling into that. How does it feel to be in the bones? What do the bones know? How does it feel to be on the planet in the bones, connecting to this earth element, connecting to this fibrous, alive nature of us being people on the planet? Even soil like has its own biome, right? The soil has its own like microbiome. There's aliveness in the soil. So sometimes we think of earth or dirt being dead and non-lifeful, but it is very full of life. So tuning into the aliveness of your bones, tuning into the aliveness of your tissues, just feeling into what that feels like right now. So the sound that we're going to work with is like just like a ooh opening up sort of to a maybe an ah or an o, like ooh wow. You're just going to kind of let your mouth play and thinking of letting the sound resonate. It can be resonating kind of outside of you, inside of like the cheekbones, nasal cavity, sinuses, all that kind of stuff, your whole cranium resonating. And we're going to play with allowing the tongue to kind of undulate or move around within that. And I can sometimes imagine it's like I have a snout and I am just letting the sound come out and resonate in the different parts of my snout, which are probably my nose, just outside of my nose and inside my head. So I'm going to do it with an ooh, and I'm going to also really imagine that the sphincter muscle of the O-ring muscle of my lips has a chance to kind of free flow. So we might think of this as being a little bit more with the fluids and with the breath, so a little bit of air and water, but feeling into the density and allowing that vibrational sound to connect us to the density of our bodies. Probably eyes closed is helpful. And I'm going to finish it off with my mouth closed, just to get that extra little bit of nitric oxide, so it's more of a hum and a like an NG sound, and in vibrating this part of my face. And when we do those kind of hums with our mouth closed, we're just creating more capacity for nitric oxide, which is antifungal, antiviral, antibacterial. And if it's too much to do the whole breath, just stick with a hum. Taking resting breaths whenever you need them. When my mouth is closed, I'm still letting my tongue kind of move around in there and feeling that how that shifts the vibration. Uh, it feels like the locale of the vibration starts to shift as my tongue is moving around. So tuning into that. When your mouth is closed, you could almost play between a like a yummy and a like a ng sound. Play between the M and the ng. If that's interesting, just if you want to feel more of the movement of the vibration. Ooh. Ooh. Inhaling back through your nose, I can kind of feel like the sort of pressure that you're putting on that sound. Think of like modulating that pressure so that it's not too intense, but really feels sort of delicious, or maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but gives you sort of more access to feeling when you're putting pressure in your face, putting pressure in your head, and then when you let it go as well. So letting yourself tune to those sort of modulations of pressures that are coming with the amount of breath that you're using for your hum or your sounding practice. A couple more breaths like this, or a couple more moments, and then we'll go a little bit deeper. You can imagine that there's like energy coming in or going out through the crown of your head, down through your pelvic floor, so that like you finding the central channel as well within the image of it. The imagination encounters it, or maybe the sensation encounters it, however it comes up for you. Ooh. So along with that, we'll do it one more time, but I want you to start to imagine and play with this idea of little micro movement, little undulations, little tiny stretches, elongating your torso and then coming back in. So there's just this very small flow of movement that's invited into your experience. There's little tiny stretches and releases. So we start to become more aware of the subtlety of tension holds in our body and in our tissue just by feeling these little ones. What does it feel like if I just elongate a little bit? And inviting in this relationship of the head and the tail, this head-tail connection in a sort of free flow manner, so that like we could imagine that our brain down through our spinal cord down through inside the bones of our cranium, inside the bones of our spine are in this sort of fluid environment, which they are. They're in the cerebral spinal fluid, and it's filtering through there. So as we're going to work with this breath a little bit longer, we're inviting in these little micro waves, little small waves, and these micro lengthenings and these maybe micro twistings, and they can happen in any formation, in any combo, in any location along that head-tail connection, or even in your arms or anywhere. But keeping it in this palette of smallness, small, tiny, a little bit of action, a little bit of release. So what I'm noticing is like when I'm just doing the sound, it's very easy for all my awareness to go onto the sound. But when I start to bring in the movement, now I'm requiring my awareness to kind of hold two places. And it might go back and forth. It might be sound, movement. But letting your attention land on these two things, either going back and forth or sticking with one for a while and then the other, or really feeling them both. Just letting ourselves come into experience with this movement and this sound, or maybe it's just humming, maybe it's just breath, but being present with yourself, being present with yourselves, being present with like whatever is going on for you. And I did want to introduce this idea of like the earth element in combination with other things. So, and it might be a way of moving to imagine that you're kind of moving like mud or moving with mud. Not that you want to clean the mud, it's just there. It's just an expression of movement. How would it be like if you've ever like had your hand deep in the mud trying to pull it out? Like you can't go fast, right? It's going to naturally slow you down. So letting yourself take the time of your movement with this idea of like being mud, being in this muddy quality, accepting the mud without having to clean it off, but just being present with it. I'm going to go with that breath a couple more times and play in my little mud bath, my internal mud. Like in a weird way, like our intestines are kind of making a mud, right? The food that comes down our throats, like we're making a little poop mud. So let yourself like even experience the movement of that, even if it's just in your imagination. Peristalsis, gut body, motility of the gut body, moving the food along. It's fluid and fiber often that are making that work. So thinking of that mud reference happening as a natural event going on in our body. One reason I wanted to get more comfortable with this mud idea is because sometimes, like when we feel something uncomfortable, like or when I feel something uncomfortable, sometimes it feels like, well, this situation feels muddy. So can I be with that without having to fix it, change it, or like be too uncomfortable that I have to change it all, but be with the mud. Taking my earbud out because it blocks my hearing too much to really sound. sometimes they help and sometimes they hinder. So just coming into movement, inviting in, we can let go of the mud idea, but I was thinking of different elemental combinations. So let's play with the idea of earth with fire. And so I feel like a good earth and fire is like lava or volcanic rock, right? Earth, when it's alive with the fire, that's the volcanic movement of lava, which also sort of has a fluid movement, but earth and fire together, like how does that move? Slowing down into that, imagining that you are volcanic, earth and fire. The Hawaiian god Pele, goddess, is associated with that. Which I noticed this, like my body wants to sort of go up with that. And if I think about like the top of a volcano, like the molten core is like heated up and agitated and starts to come up and out. What is that like? Maybe it's going down and out. Maybe it's flowing. Just feeling into that combo. If it feels interesting, it might be, no, not into that today. So any kind of movement is totally acceptable. This is just an offering as an experiment to see how these things land in your experience. Sort of density of a lava flow, the heat, the density. And then when that lava is like cooled quickly with water, like the rock has a interesting way of expressing, right? There's kind of spaciousness to it too. So we've got the earth by itself, earth with water, earth with fire. So my image for earth with air is kind of like a sandstorm. So I want to change the breath so that it doesn't have any vocal chord resonance. So it's just like a windstorm. And that is with blowing up the sand or blowing the trees, like the earthy nature getting drawn in to the airy nature. It could just be like you can see on the beach when it's really windy and the sand is kind of blowing along. So it could be that, could be tumbleweeds, any kind of imagery, but working with that non-vocal chord breath sound. Again, it can be ooh, ah, ooh, but letting yourself tune into that sandstorm nature, which to me has a lot more speed. And I don't know, I want to say it actually has more volatility than the, but that's baloney. It does not have more volatility than the lava, but maybe it has more spaciousness. So what does it feel like to be the sandstorm? To play the breath as a sandstorm? The power of the air to shape the earth. We could think about sand dunes or the deserts, the sand with the hills. breath shaping, creating shape. And all of this is sort of an experiment to be with ourselves in different modes and to be with our own muddiness, to be with our own big sandstorm, to be with our own lava flow, right? Ah, so that we can engage with these types of sort of powers that are coming from within and from without, within our imagination and our capacity for movement and breath and embodiment, right? What is it like to be those things? So I think I'm going to, oh, I had one more. Yeah. The final one. And I'm actually going to do this one standing. You can do this one on the laying down, seated, however you want to. But I was thinking about, well, what is Earth with space? And obviously it's the planet Earth in space. But I thought maybe a better metaphor is like being like a galaxy, the earthy material nature with space. I mean, it might be Stardust. It might be Ziggy Stardust and the spiders from Mars, but it also might just be the orbiting movement of planets in space. So letting this come in, maybe it's small little internal orbits, maybe it's big external orbits, letting it come in any way that feels curious and interesting. The supernova, a lot of elements mixed up together. But feeling into galaxy, the movement of a galaxy. What if you could move like a galaxy? It could just be in your breath. It could be laying down. It could just be in your imagination. And this idea, like I kind of feel like, oh, galaxies are moving so fast. But to the galaxy, it's probably hardly moving at all. What is the sense of movement from the galaxy perspective? And I'm going to add music and take us. Maybe you're up moving around, maybe you're down on the floor. Whatever feels good to you, whatever feels nourishing to you is fine. Do it like that. And what kind of music is going to work for this? Not ballet music. Let's see. Well, this might be a total, I'm just going to rando it, but it's going to be ambient fields. We're going to go with a piece called Unformed and see how that goes. Sometimes we think of Earth as being really form oriented. So what is it like for this Earth to be unformed? Well, that's kind of it's almost like a non sequitur, like, is that right? Not a non sequitur, like a paradox, unformed Earth, is a non sequitur. Paradoxical. But in our imaginations, there's infinite capacity for any of this to express in any way. So I'm going to come back to my own mud and just feel into that, giving myself equanimity and compassion for my experience of being muddy. I'm just feeling muddy today. But maybe there's something to be found in that mud, right? Maybe there's some good compost. Maybe there's some clay, something to build with. If I actively spend time feeling like mud, How is it when I experience a situation that makes me feel kind of muddy? Can I be okay with it? So just searching for equanimity to be with ourselves and ourselves in diverse situations and not have to run away from ourself or the situation, but be able to be present with, to move through, move with and through the mud or the sandstorm or the volcano. We're all here in our expression of the moment together, right? Whatever that is, however it's coming. But even if the moment means now or another now at a later time, somehow we're still connected with that moment of now. This now, that now, they're all now. Having compassion for my own mud, my mucky pigsty sloshing. It can be playful too. It doesn't have to be this depressing thing. It can also be playful. Think of little kids going out to stamp in the puddles, splashing around the mud. Or like the cleansing quality of like a clay mask, or like getting into the mud with your whole body, clearing away the dead skin by that rubbing of that uh, granular mud. So clearing away the detritus with the mud. And when you come out, right, who is it? Who are you when you come out of the mud? The transformation. The sandbox. We used to play in the sandbox when I was a kid, and we would put the hose into the sandbox, and the sand and the water would get all mushy and mucky, and we would chant diarrhea, diarrhea. I'm sure this is what you want to hear about, but that's what we did in the sandbox, and that was more fun than playing in the sandbox without the water. And the water would be leaking out the sides of the sandbox, draining down the driveway. Little kids in their underwear chanting in the mud, in the mud box. If you think about the element Earth and the planet Earth, like the planet Earth has all the elements. It has water, it has air, it has fire, it has earth, and it nourishes us. Our bones, our fascia are made in accord with this environment. If we went to another one where it was much denser gravity, we would be way heavier and denser to be able to make it through. If we're in a very light gravity environment, we lose the density of our tissues. Astronauts who come back to Earth, first their blood comes back to being, well, they lose density in their blood, and they lose density in their fascia, and they lose density in their bones. And when they come back to Earth, and you can learn this on the NASA website. I've studied it there. When they come back to Earth, first in a few days, their blood comes back to a normal density. And then in some months, maybe their fascia starts to come back to the same density, but in their bones will not ever come back to the same density as they were before the trip into space. Our bodies were meant to be on this planet. This is our natural environment. And if you're here, it's your birthright to be here. You belong. No matter what your birth story, no matter who wanted you or didn't want you in your family, you belong here on this planet at this moment. Now it's going to go somewhere random, which I don't know where it's going to go. Let's find out. This is another ambient fields, Iceland music. Change into this. This music is like, well, one more little short bit of music to go in deep earth into our sensation of being with the earth, of the earth, being the earth, connected to the earth, in relationship to gravity, with any element that feels curious to explore. Earth and air, sandstorm, tumbleweed, earth and fire. Could even be the wax of the candle, and the candle burning could be earth and fire. But I also like the volcano being the lava, and earth and water, mud, being with our own muddiness. Allowing yourself to play with little micro stretches, micro relaxations, micro waves as two separate words, not the thing that we cook with, but the little wave, the itty bitty tiny little movement wave. And allowing your body to express, allowing the elements to express, not forcing it in, but allowing it to come through. Allowing the elements into your awareness and your experience and your relationship, right? Have a relationship with these things. I need more structure in my life. I need more earth. I need more action. I need more drive. I need more fire. I need more fluidity and more relational harmony. I need more water. Or I need more ideas and more creativity in the thinky way, in the my mind is like a balloon just expanding and expanding air, thinking of maybe that's flighty, but maybe it's also just very open. So these things can come by themselves or in relationship to other elements. If you listen deeply to your bones, even think of listening to the marrow inside your bones. What what does it say? What's the expression? It might not be words, it might be movement. Yeah, and then the space, the relationship to space, right? What are my bones doing in space? How do they move? How do they, I want to say receive the space, but the space is everywhere. It's within and without, supporting my bony existence. Just going to take that down and give us a couple of minutes to process the processing, right? Earth, what a great place to digest, right? My gut body in the mud doing its receiving the food, receiving the nourishment, but also receiving my life, right? My bones, receiving the activity, receiving my experience, flowing down, giving yourself a chance to process. And these somatic dives are very much a processing experience on a body level. It doesn't have to be attached to story. I like to include a lot of imagery or imagination exercises just to help us try things on in different ways. But when we're working on this body level, like the processing is ineffable. It's like we haven't got the language to speak about it, or at least not very well. Our language for body is pretty basic. The language is really movement. Coming into being, bringing the body online in experience so that we can really notice what we're actually feeling, where we are called to go this way or to go that way. Like, is it, I know it because I can feel my heart drawn over there, or like, oh no, not that. I can feel it in my guts. Like this experience of being a body in the world and how we experience our day and our friends and our families and our relationships. Like that's all happening in our body. We might be thinking about it a lot, but it's really happening here in this body mind. So if you were here in the TV land and have joined at all, I know there's some people that came and went. Thanks a lot for joining. Nice to